if this policy is challenged in court? All of these questions and more we'll get insight into this morning and speak on the legality of the voter revalidation. My guest is joining me virtually this morning, Anthony Ehilebo. He is a public affairs analyst and he would help to give insight into this conversation. Welcome, if you can hear me. Good morning. Can you hear me? Good morning. Happy Easter.
Happy Easter to you.
Thank you for joining us. Let's get into this conversation real quick and get a bit of understanding from your perspective and from the legal standpoint. What is voter revalidation? What does it mean in basic terms?
Well, okay, once again, good morning to your listeners and happy Easter to your listeners as well. When you talk about voter revalidation, it's the first time in this current dispensation, democratic experiment, our fourth republic. It's the first time since 1999 we've had a voter revalidation. What usually is the case, and of course, not to take away the capacity of the electoral body to self-evolve and act according to the expediencies of the time, which means if there are challenges that it has seen through its successive elections, it may move through the use of its domestic powers, because the Electoral Act, the Constitution guarantees certain functionalities to INEC and capacities. INEC, for instance, can make electoral guidelines for the conduct of credible elections. It's in its right. INEC, for instance, is the custodian of the electoral register, which means everybody who has attained the age of 18 has met the requirements to be a viable voter. INEC holds that by law, holds that register for the country and for the state, and maintains that register. What I have heard, not voter validation, has been a cleanup of the voter register. I dare say it's a cumbersome task to clean up the INEC. About 1 or 2 years. That's having dedicated staff to clean up the register. I don't know. It's possible now we may have AI intervention where AI can help make it faster. That's artificial intelligence. But in the past, you would have to have manual. When I say manual, I mean data operators or data scientists or technologists who would be employed for their services by INEC, or to help maintain and review data and clean it up. So, for instance, if the system were to work well, for people who have died in the subsistency of the current dispensation and who are registered voters, and also have their deaths registered at National Population Commission, right? And is available to INEC. And INEC says, okay, this data we have from National Population Commission of people who are registered as registered death certificates. And then they can remove those people from the register and invalidate their votes, and then thereby preventing other people from using or attempting to use their voters' cards. That is indeed, and that's non-invasive, so it doesn't involve the voter. Now, incidentally, the voters' card is called a permanent. It's called a PVC, a permanent voters' card, which means once you have it for life. To 9 months to an election, to wake up and say you want to validate people's voters' card, you even have to put into context the capacity of people to want to even sacrifice the time to go and revalidate this voters card, considering that INEC has a very big crisis on its hand, where it is unable, by virtue of its credibility, to influence a good majority of registered voters to exercise their franchise. Very sadly, the data that we've had from previous elections stemming from, in 20, I don't have it off the top of my head, but having extrapolated before, from 2015, where we had a very high turnout of voters because people had confidence, it's dropped to, it's never gone. I think 2015 was when it went above 30%, and it has steadily declined up until 2023, where we had about 25 or between 25, oscillating between 25 and 28% average of voter turnout across the nation in terms of the general election. And we've seen this with off-cycle elections. In the Edo election, we had less than 22 or 23% voter turnout. You would ask why you now have voter apathy. Because we've had subsequent elections or a series of elections that the people have invested their time, their emotions, and the belief in the practice of their franchise or the exercise of their franchise, that whatever they feel is the general and maybe overwhelming consensus of people towards a candidate, that it is reflected in the results that eventually come. And where there is a problem, it now then relies, or the people now then rely on the judiciary to restore whatever mandate or legal mandate that they have freely given to a candidate at an election. This series of unfortunate events have culminated in what we currently have now as very, very low voter turnout. So we're talking about the decision or the individuals that manage our commonwealth, that manage our common policies, that manage our social contracts, our security expectations. The primary role of government is to provide these services. And for government to be able to provide these services, you have people who are operators, people who will operate the levers of government. So you have politicians who vie for offices and become this leadership strata of society that then becomes the people who make the decisions for the people. So, for instance,
Anthony, I'd like to piggyback off something you said so we don't lose track of it real quick. And this borders on your reference to the voting numbers in 2023. It was about 26.7%. And we've seen a somewhat steady decline since 2011, when it was about 53.7%. In 2015, 43.7%. In 2019, about 34%. So that decline is a bit concerning. And for that register that had about 93 million people registered in 2023, that number, or that percentage of those who came out to exercise their right and vote, is just a fraction of the total number of persons. So about 1 in 4 persons who registered to vote, only one of those 4 came out to vote. And it brings concerning, questions around the trust in the electoral system and the body. And when this, news broke about the voter revalidation, which was an attempt to clean up the register, a cross-section of Nigerians raised eyebrows and questioned if the process was indeed to clean up the register or disenfranchise Nigerians. So what would INEC be doing differently in a bid to ensure that we have a trustworthy voter register and it can still have the trust of Nigerians? Did you get my question?
Sorry, my mic was muted.
Okay.
What you see here, our INEC's malady right now is what's in PR we call perception crisis. Um, there is a high level of perception or positive perception deficiency um, within INEC and its operations generally, and this has been so. There's always the always present distrust of the state and state institutions by a certain number of people. It doesn't really stay steady if it is a minority or a majority. And very recently, stemming from a series of concomitant events, you've seen a very steady decline in INEC's, the reception of people for INEC, and that's the participation in elections. Um, it's gone further down the drain. And this is an electoral system that at 2017 or so, 2007, when President Umaru Musa Yar'Adua came in through an election which he admitted was deeply flawed. He sought to redirect the flow and the management of our elections, and then he got together a panel headed by the late Justice, I can't remember his name, former Supreme Court Justice, who came out with recommendations for reforms for INEC, and this has been followed through for the Jonathan government, and then incidentally, the Buhari government didn't do it in their first tenure, but they signed it in the second term. And more recently now, the 2026 amendment. All this has not put INEC in the right light. Let's look at a couple of off-cycle elections. In Edo State, you had an INEC that had a commissioner sign the results for 18 local governments, whereas it needed to have been individual electoral returning officers who had signed this documents, forgeries, frustration during the elections itself. Several actions that showed that there was an increasing compromise of the electoral body in terms of its neutrality and perception. And perhaps that is why when the former INEC boss Yakubu Mahmoud was nominated as an ambassador, there was a huge outcry. He didn't deserve it. The elections under him became very, very terrible. And so when a senior advocate of Nigeria, someone who had, led, and incidentally was in the current president's defense team during the 2023 election, petition tribunal, all the way to the Supreme Court. So you'd expect that this person has a fair understanding what those who are on the side of the law have had to argue in courts over time as to what it expects of an INEC and where we think that the burdens in terms of legal jurisprudence, where the burden is placed on the petitioner, and there's no burden on INEC. INEC doesn't have to come and tell you why a particular result is a particular way. You'll find this at trial. So with all of these things in a potpourri, and these things are very visible to Nigerians. Nigerians follow these cases on social media, and that's just in the advent of social media. So there's a lot more awareness on how our electoral body is performing. So, for instance, now you look at the management of the political parties leading up to elections. We're in a crisis right now because INEC has taken an action against the African Democratic, a new party with a lot of belief that and hue and cry that the president or the APC is trying to muscle everybody into a one-party state. I mean, when you see the signs, the telltale signs where almost all state governors are all defecting to one political party, and you are hearing stories of them being muscled. In fact, not stories. The governor of Bauchi State has come out to say He's been under immense pressure to join the APC. That's not even hidden, because you see this in with the chairman of the APC going to go there. You are hearing stories of so with all of this, and then the next actions of INEC. There's a lot of suspicion around anything INEC is doing right now.
Now, Anthony, we need to take a breather in a bit, and when we come back in about 2 minutes, we would have you, land on these thoughts and complete, what you're trying to say about INEC and the need for independence. But the name you were trying to remember at the time is Mohammed Uwais, who was the Chief Justice of Nigeria from 95 to 2006, and he brought up some commendable reform ideas with the Uwais report of 2008, but we'll get into details after this.
More talk, news and sports after this.
Audio Jungle.
Scatter, our calci seal or calci craft sealing product.
Thank you so much for staying tuned. It is 8:27 right here. We're looking at INEC and the voter revalidation, as well as calls for its suspension, pending when further action will be taken. My guest, Anthony Ahilebo, has been speaking on this. He is a public affairs analyst, and he was making reference to the recent decision as well by the electoral body in terms of ADC and the various pushback and reactions it's getting from that as to it being sabotaged or a part of a sabotage to prevent the opposition from being actively involved in the next elections in 2027. Now, we're making reference to the Uwais report of 2008, which gave a lot of recommendations that would further strengthen the electoral bodies, some of which have never exactly been implemented. INEC's independence, removing the president's power to appoint INEC leadership unilaterally, which is one of the reasons why a cross-section of Nigerians do not believe in the electoral body or have any trust or confidence in them. There is also the recommendation for the Electoral Offences Commission to be established on bundling INEC, separate responsibilities, political party registration, electoral offences, dispute resolutions, and the likes, transparent results management, internal party democracy, regulating party primaries to reduce imposition of candidates, amongst other things that were recommended at the time. So let me have you, land on that thought you were making with regards to what happened with the discontinuation of the recognition of the party leaders for the ADC, and what's the appeal court's ruling, the target used, returning to status quo, actually means while we wait for whatever would come of the Federal High Court filings.
You know what's interesting is that this has been. I remember in another show. I don't think it was hosted by you. I think it was by Itodo, and I mentioned that know there these operators of um, the several levers put in by our constitution and the framers of our constitution to manage our electoral processes and all of this have to understand that um, they are a national security asset that needs to function at its optimal best for us to have a society that is free of chaos and anarchy. Look, democracy is it's a contraption. It's evolved over years. It's matured. It's come, this is from the Romans, from the Greeks, who have, over time tested several methods of governance and discovered that, okay, yes, if we apply these rules, if we apply this set of governance models, it will always bring up leaders that are responsive to the needs and aspirations of their people. I do not think that the way INEC is functioning, the way our judiciary is returning verdicts, that the essence of democracy is still in effect. We have created something crazy, something wildly different from the outcome that democracy should give people. And when that happens, people lose confidence, people lose faith in the system. And what I see is INEC creating or attempting to, and I don't think Nigerians are having any of it. Anyway, in any case, I hear that they've suspended off track. I went on the INEC handles and I've not seen a published um, view that they have stepped down on this idea. But the fact that they are carrying out a validation exercise that they did not publicize prior to now, why then, in a tense atmosphere where people highly suspect your actions, your interpretation of court rulings, your own interpretation? I mean, INEC, it's even very simple. I think even a non-lawyer would know that if INEC has a problem with the interpretation of a judgment of a competent court that has jurisdiction, right? INEC can approach the court and say, interpret this for me, please, before taking any action. If it feels that, and it's so funny that INEC is now being led by senior advocate of Nigeria. The chairman of INEC is a senior advocate with several belts under his tummy. So one wonders why we are now at this point where 9 months or you have already released the timetable and you are now asking people to go and revalidate, and you are telling them that they should go to their. So I vote in my local government. Considering the cost of petrol now, considering the insecurity on the roads, considering that there's no even infrastructure to travel. So one has to plan maybe 8 to 9 months ahead before you make a trip right now in Nigeria. Realistically, you are telling people that they may lose their right to vote. I think, INEC it seems like a part of a grand conspiracy. Several of us have been mounting these things and you hear this, that, we're gradually approaching a one-party state. There are intentional interventions, masked under schemes in all the political parties to destabilize them and get us to the inevitable answer to a question that nobody is going to contest against President Bola Ahmed Tinubu in 2011 or can legally contest against him. Several things. And you look at the Electoral Act that was signed, it looks like a personalized. How can an amendment to our laws be favorable just to one person? Because the president has a challenge with certificates. You hear that the new Electoral Act has removed the section that deals with presenting forged certificates. Doediri would not be governor of Bayelsa State if David Leon's deputy did not forge his certificate. And the thing I don't understand is that Nigeria's greatest problem, in my own opinion, is a lack of consequences for any action. So when you remove a law that has evolved to understand the problems that it faces, seeing that certificate forgery is a problem. There are several people who have not gone to school who claim they went to school. And the most interesting thing is that our laws do not even require you to have gone. It's the basic thing it asks that you've done is the primary, and that you are literate enough. You can contest for it. But you still see people going to forge school certificates of schools that are non-existent. Now, you are now removing a checkmate into the moral compass or the moral overview of an individual. If he can go to the extent of forging his educational qualification, imagine what that person will do in governance. It means that for him as a starter, it is not a problem to alter or falsely amend documents to suit a purpose and present forged a criminal offense.
Now, recall that the INEC chairman, upon assumption of office, made a promise to everyone, to Nigerians, because that's whom he is serving, to ensure that every election will be credible and that the losers will believe in the system enough to congratulate the winners of the election. But with the way things are playing out, some people believe that that is not what could happen, and that the elections in 2027 might be contested just like we've seen in previous elections in the country. But I want to get to some thoughts, right? That will open up the phone lines, and you can also respond to some of comments that will come through.
Can I respond to the last point you made?
Yes, go ahead with that.
I'll tell you a story. He's no longer in office, so I can say the story. A friend of ours initiated in 2018. We're young, viral. Initiated a sort of Chatham House meeting with Mahmoud Yakubu, then chairman of INEC. No phones, open conversation, and he swore to us all these things that you said, Professor Josh Amapita said. We believed this man, not knowing that it was a PR scam to just make sure that those of us that held public opinion will speak well of the man. When we got to 2019 election, this man denied having a server that he publicly marketed weeks before the election. So the trust deficit Professor Josh Amokpita now is facing is that the things he has promised, look at case in point, the FCT elections. They had several press statements. The candidates in the election do not agree and have said they are not just going to even just waste their time going to court because they've seen the folly of even trying to do that, because INEC is not even your friend when you go to court. Whenever you go to court, it doesn't matter what party. As long as you are going to court, INEC is not your friend. INEC will not come and give evidence to support you. The most you can do is to subpoena INEC. And there's a limit to what you can ask INEC under a subpoena. So it's really trying, and the greatest people or the greatest factor here are the people who have remained resolute despite the very provocative tendencies of the electoral umpire. People say, why is a contestant? You cannot be a judge in your own matter or be the one that appoints a judge in your matter. assuming that you are going to. So I think that we must. So you don't want to whittle down the powers of the president, but a president who has an election should not be able to nominate a chairman that will preside over that election. There must be a clause. We're not saying the president can, but if you are going to appoint a chairman, that chairman, it must be within the context that that chairman is not going to supersede or to pretend over an election that you are going to participate in, so that we deliver what fairness ought to be. Even judicial pronouncements, people must see it as fair. The judge must rationalize his decision, and when everybody reads the decision, yes, he makes sense and he's following the law. Same thing with outcomes of INEC. Like, everybody will say, yes, this is what, and people often say this. And the Abiola election is often cited as one of the freest and fairest elections. Nigerians can anyhow tell you elections that they feel did not meet the expectations, because they get all the reports of how ballot boxes are not delivered on time, there's collusion of INEC staff. You get this report, so if INEC is doing what it's supposed to do. So that's just the point I wanted to.
Let's get to the phone lines and get some thoughts in. 0700 951 0000. 08095974869. Those are the numbers to call. For WhatsApp, you can send a message or a voice note to the WhatsApp line 08099930137. You have limited time, so once you get through, please go straight to the point that you want to make. Good morning.
Hello, good morning.
Welcome, sir.
My name is Adiola Victor from Legality.
Go ahead.
You see, Nigerian politicians don't like reform that will trap them because they are not popular. Where's the report? We continue to sit upon that report and continue to draft because they are not popular. If they carry out the reforms, they will not win the election again. Especially look at one aspect of that report. Set up special courts to fight electoral offenders. But they refuse, because these are the people who are sponsoring people to rig election for them. So if they are arrested, do you think they will be happy to send these people to jail? No, they don't do. We have been calling on them to implement our election report. They refuse. So when we have leaders who are ready to commit class suicide, so ready to step on toes, then we will get it right. But for now, I doubt. And I just pity the chairman of INEC because the man is in the midst of desperate politics. They forsake him.
All right.
Because they are not popular. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Let's get to you next. Good morning.
Morning. Itodo.
Yes, sir. Welcome.
Good morning to you and good morning to our guest. The truth of the matter is that we have serious trust issues. You have serious trust issues in Nigeria, and when it comes to election, INEC, and so on. Now, assuming that this current APC wins this election, I don't see opposition, wanting to go to court, because already there is that notion, there is that belief that even the judiciary has been compromised. Because now people believe that INEC is an arm of APC, the judiciary is an arm of APC. So I just hope that this election is not going to be one that will be with a lot of violence. So I just feel like this current administration need to slow down. Let it be. I don't know why it's now that you're waking up and you say you want to revalidate a voter's card. It is sending a kind of signal that you want to manipulate everything. So I agree with our guest. Even if you go to court, INEC will not be on your side. They are not going to even be neutral. You find them presenting evidence in favor of whatever it is that they declared. They are not going to say, oh, okay, let's allow a free affair this now, give all the evidence. You find them working as if they are part of APC. So there is no trust. Thank you, Itodo, and thank you to our guest.
All right, thank you. Let's get to you next. Good morning.
Morning, once again, DK.
Welcome.
My calling from my phone.
Ahead.
You see, like the last caller just said, there is no trust. Why should INEC promise us all results will be transmitted, and then at the end of the day, they will not do that. They have representatives in polling stations in all the world. They will see people selling their voters' card, buying people to come and vote. They will not do anything about it. And they want me to go and stand under the sun from morning till in the night that I'm defending my vote. Defending what? When election is being rigged in your presence, you have representatives dead. Nobody will say anything. Nobody will do anything. And then the judiciary, too, they are always dancing to enjoy the periphery of corruption that is taking place in this country.
All right.
Thank you very much for the opportunity.
Thank you very much, sir, for sharing your thoughts. We're streaming live on YouTube and Facebook at Nigeria Info Abuja. Looking at some of the comments right here. Chanya Charles, Musa Imachuri, thank you for your thoughts. Dr. Mrs. Umar Lebara is asking a question, and she starts with voter cards no longer permanent. What is the rationale behind this revalidation? Is it a way to disenfranchise some people? The INEC chairman has not really told us the agenda he has for Nigerians, is how she ends her message. And good morning, Suleiman Jibril, who is watching from Bauchi State this morning. Let's get in a few more thoughts. You can send a WhatsApp message to the WhatsApp line 080-99-930-137. Good morning.
Hello, good morning.
Welcome.
Yeah, my name is Jamilu Otaku.
Go ahead, Jamilu.
I want to use this opportunity to say happy Easter to all my Christian brothers for the wonderful food they gave me yesterday. Thank you very much, my brothers. And I want to welcome our guest. I agree on all what he said about the voters' revalidation, which is very wrong timing. Because when you look at some people, they vote in their hometown. And now, most of them are in various states working. How are you expect people to go and revalidate when we are approaching election? And where I haven't the difference with him is when they said that Mr. President has no right to appoint INEC chairman. I don't believe in that way, because when you look at the situation we find ourselves, who do we trust? Even if you say Mr. President will not appoint the INEC chairman, among the people that we want them to appoint, who are you trust? The judiciary or the National Assembly people, or we the masses? So that is why the only way out now is the Constitution that said that Mr. President has the power and mandate to appoint the INEC chairman. The only thing that will put pressure to Mr. President to make sure that what he appoints is the person that is trustworthy.
Okay.
Because no one will appoint the INEC chairman that people will not complain. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, sir, for sharing your thoughts. Anthony, I'd like you to respond to any of the comments that you would love to respond to or give clarification to. Are you there if you can hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
All right.
So, with regard to the comments of some guy made earlier about allowing INEC to look, INEC is conducting election for human beings. These human beings have challenges, right? If they feel a particular direction INEC is taking is not going to encourage them or motivate them, don't you think INEC needs to retrace their steps? And for the second caller, I think the only thing that he disagreed was about the president nominating the INEC chairman. I think I put a caveat to it and said, if he is going to participate in any of the elections, he should not nominate. It should just be a principle. Systems can be put in place to get a suitable candidate. I mean, depends on the criteria that is put, that this person must be of unimpeachable character, must have gone through certain groups, must be in a certain practice, or, there are many ways to frame or put a sort of description of what you want the ideal person who is going to hold an office as important as that of the chairman of INEC. There are just requirements that you put to it. So yeah, that's just my response. I didn't say the president should not have such powers, but if he's going to be an aspirant or candidate under this, I mean, if you bring a judge, you can bring a judge that you know that will be biased towards you. I don't think that we don't think that they are good people, but self-survival and self-preservation is a primary instinct, and you must take steps as a state, as the Leviathan, the greater state, to protect yourself or protect the state's institutions from such abuse.
Now, if voters are no longer trusting of the body in charge of conducting elections, there's a concern as to what that could do, and the voter apathy it would create in the next elections, because people would say whatever it is that we vote on or we decide on, it would not translate to in the results that would be declared eventually, and that puts a lot of strain on the democracy, only leaving a little fraction of registered Nigerians to decide on the next batch of leaders. So in what ways can, not just the government or the electoral body, but Nigerians be made to exercise their right, wherein a majority of those who have registered to vote are made to do that and can also hold on to the system, believing that indeed these votes or the votes that they cast will count?
Well, Benga, this is not an indictment of your mood this morning, but you seem curiously optimistic, and you have chosen the path of the least outcome, the least possible outcome of how Nigerians feel, which you say they will have voter apathy. That's an option we can live with if they have voter apathy. But the other options are not so nice, That's why I said you're curiously optimistic. That is the only part the Nigerian citizen can take. They are the people. They are the majority. So what you do not want is to, excuse my language, piss off the majority to the extent that they decide to follow options. And I will redirect you to go and listen to I may send it to you on WhatsApp, Femi Falana's speech at the 5th memorial of for Comrade Yinka Odumaki. He made very profound, he analyzed the court's INEC's intervention, INEC's interpretation, how wrong it was, and how it looks like a collusion with the ruling government, the ruling party. Professor Itodo On says he has it on good authority, that the chairman of INEC, allegedly signed a resignation letter, and that's why he moved in that way. Also, very recently, confirmed, what has not been confirmed is the monetary aspect, confirmed that top INEC staff received land allocations from the Minister of the FCT.
Those are really heavy allegations to throw out there, and pretty damning on the system.
Yeah, so from the reports I've read so far, it seems confirmed that the land. What has not been confirmed is that the $50,000 also given. When you have such, and I think ADC has written, I'm very sure I saw something from Bolaji Abdullahi with regards to this particular exposure. You hear judges have also been given houses in the FCT. This is a curious mix for our democracy. When people feel that you have taken away the option to choose from them, they will remove you. That is the obstacle. And they will stop at nothing to do that.
All right.
I've seen this in the determination I saw in 2023. during the election where young people decided they were going to vote for Peter Obi, and there was nothing you were going to do to stop them. You know.
All right. I have to let you go at this point because we're pressed for time, but thank you so much for giving insight into this, helping us understand what needs to be done differently. And we hope to have you back here again soon enough, to have more of these conversations as we, get into the election season in due time, and of course 2027, as also what Nigerians really want from the leaders and how they can be held accountable. Thank you so much, Anthony Hilebo. He is a public affairs analyst, and happy Easter to you again.
Happy Easter Monday to you, your listeners in Abuja and across the country, and indeed the world. Good tidings. I hope, despite the bad news we've received across the nation of people being killed, other people have had, at least even if it's just a downtime, I don't think there's a lot to celebrate.
All right.
Especially economically. But yeah, I'll always be available to you guys.
Thank you very much.
More conversation, more talk, more right after this.
Let's run through some messages real quick. I think some of the other Nigerians involved in the electoral process are part of the trust problem, with the INEC chairman being every location. It is some of the people involved. I think those Nigerians who have betrayed in the past by helping to rig results should have some conscience, is what the Queen says. We need a new INEC in these coming elections. New strategies, techniques, and terminologies is what Hafsat says. And credible opposition and fair competition are the mainstream of modern-day politics. I see them dying in Nigerian politics, is a thought that Chima in a post says. And can someone remind INEC that PVC stands for Permanent Voters Card? How does a document declared permanent suddenly become temporary at the whim of Professor Mopitan? This revalidation exercise is destined to fail as Nigerians have overwhelmingly rejected it. The law affirms permanence. Any attempt to undermine voters' card is both transparent and contemptible. Boycott this in resolute defiance is what Wale Fatunla shares as his reaction. A good place to wrap up this conversation this morning. We'll follow up on what INEC decides in the coming days and get to talk about what it means for the people, the democracy, and Nigeria at large. Thank you so much for your time this morning. I hope you're having a good holiday, an extended weekend, so to say. At 9 o'clock, the business news will be live with Dorcas, and afterwards, Sports Drive, 9:30, what's happening in Abuja. Do all to have a good Monday and stay hydrated. My name is Itodo. Good morning.
With all the stories that make the news,
The headlines,
the caption, the breaking news,
details of the stories
let's talk about these and more
on 95.